This mindset is going to help you stand out from the noise, connect with your community, and give better presentations. My name is Maria Finkelmeier. I'm a percussionist, composer, and professor at Berklee College of Music. This is a lecture on the performing mindset. I give this lecture to my creative entrepreneur students who are just developing their identities, their artistic voices in their projects. I hope you find some value in it as well. Enjoy. So today we're going to talk a lot about approaching performing as a mindset as opposed to just a strategy or something that you do as a performing artist or as a musician or as like a trade, right? Because we're at Berklee College of Music. You are here to study, some of you, how to be performers, how to be producers, how to be educators, etc. I want all of us, regardless if you see yourself live on stage in 10, 20, 30 years tomorrow, I want you to be able to access this mindset in a way that empowers you in any of those careers. Okay? Most specifically entrepreneurship, because this is creative entrepreneur mindsets, right? So in your journal entry, I invited you to talk about performances that really spoke to you, things that like have stuck with you. Was that fun to write about? Yeah? Can I get like 2 examples of just describe a performance that was really effective to you? Riley, go for it.
This was back, do you know what the Big E is?
I don't.
Okay, it's like the big like festival, carnival. Styx was playing there.
Nice.
It was pouring that
yes.
day. Their attitude towards it, and like they were like kind of cracking jokes. They're like, I
Yeah.
don't know, rain,
Yeah.
whatever. Show goes on.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And they were
I
just
love
like
it.
still so upbeat and stuff, and that
I love
it
it.
almost like didn't matter.
I love
like,
it.
It was just like their ability to kind of almost like transcend like the conditions
Mm.
and still create like a entertaining show.
I love
really
it.
Cool.
I'm going to take that phrase, the ability to transcend the conditions, right? Oh, that was beautiful. Really good job. Everyone snaps for Riley. That was just stunning. So what I love that you're bringing to the table right away is that regardless if it was raining, regardless of anything, the band showed up for that audience. That audience showed up for that band. It was actually this moment in which the performing mindset was happening throughout. It wasn't controlled by any one individual, right? Because everybody was there showing up to be this community that is experiencing for this concert, right? So this transcendence, this idea that we might plan everything to the T, but no moment is ever that predictable. So they were able to like perform through hailstorm, right? And still bring kind of that power. And I think that's really powerful. Has anyone also experienced something that was like a show or presentation or concert that looked like it had everything against it? Right? Because if you look at your app and like it's going to rain for this show, you don't go. But everybody showed up, including the performers. Has anyone else experienced something like that? Tala.
I didn't go, but the Taylor Swift rain show.
I know, right?
But
And she did it.
That was
she
crazy.
did it, and the place was packed from what I saw.
Exactly.
And I actually heard that people said they wouldn't have had it.
Oh, totally. I mean, I remember seeing videos where her like the piano was just like overwhelmed with water. I think that's one power to a very professional individual, right? The performing mindset is saying, this is my job. My job is to either share music with you, or my job is to share my intention, share my idea, share my business, share my knowledge as a professor. That is my job. And so this mindset honors that, right? So I want you to try to transcend this idea of performing beyond the moments on stage. I want you to transcend it into any time of your life. I'm going to say transcend like a million times just because Riley did, and I love it now. So thank you. So beyond a presentation of your practice to an audience, beyond being Taylor Swift with a guitar, what does it mean to perform? So number 1, performing is an opportunity for connection, right? To have the privilege to talk to you today, I find it to be a privilege. It is this opportunity to say, hello, we're all in the same room. We're wanting to study these same things, and we are connecting, right? And I'm not more important than anybody else in this room, and I'm bringing that mindset as I attempt to lecture for you today. Performing is an invitation. Regardless of where someone comes to the Styx concert, to the Taylor Swift concert, to the underground show at some house here in Boston, it is an invitation to have that shared experience, right? And performing is a way in which artists and entrepreneurs share ideas, emotions, stories, and experiences. If I would say, go perform your presentation, what was your gut reaction to that statement? Does anyone have possibly a negative connection to saying, oh, now I have to perform? Our theater, Isaiah, our actor is like, it depends. Tell me more.
I don't like public speaking.
You don't like public speaking. Why not?
I feel like I'm stupid. Everything that comes out of my mouth just sounds dumb to me.
Yeah, me too.
You know?
100%. Like, I cannot watch things back. But I'm proud of them. Performing as being in a spotlight, right? Ugh, it can feel exhausting. It can make you feel not as bright as you know yourself to be. What I want to share with you is that anyone in an audience is not thinking any of those things about you, right? We're not kind of bringing that bias to, you're being the most, what do I want to say, like analytical to yourself. And I also want to take away the spotlight in this performing mindset, because I don't want you to think of performing as a moment, but performing as how you just approach communication styles, right? So when I'm talking about performing in the entrepreneurial space, we are constantly trying to share the value of our ideas, right? You did 3 like very, casual pitches at the beginning of class, and those were opportunities to connect. It was an invitation to understand your thought process, right? And so, did any of you feel a spotlight on you? You did? So as you kind of massage and as you grow this mindset, I hope that spotlight just feels like as natural as talking to your friend. I think for me, the most effective presentations is when I actually don't see the 100 people around me, right? I got some nods, right? You don't feel like if you're in the audience for Sticks, you're like, they're playing for me, right? If you've ever been to a Gillette Stadium show or TD Garden show, it's like you're sitting in the nosebleeds. You want to still feel as connected to that artist as possible. It's interesting because we know when we feel the energy of a performer, and now your job as you kind of leap into your careers as entrepreneurs and musicians and producers and creators and wonderful members of society is to how can you embody that, right? How can you make other people feel like that? So here are my 4 kind of tips on what makes effective performance, all right? So 1, expresses intentionality. What do you think I mean by expresses intentionality? Yeah, Jack.
I think there's sort of like when people look at performance in the figurative sense, just like in how you conduct yourself, there's sort of a conception of it being like putting up a front, and there are times where that's true. But,
Okay.
Not always. Like sometimes performing is just like presenting your true self.
I think 2 great points you're making, so thank you for contributing. One is that intentionality is not putting on a front or a mask. Intentionality is showing up as yourself. 2, intentionality is showing up as a professional. Showing up, and to me, professionalism is respect. So I'm respecting your time by being prepared for every class. You're respecting my time by turning in your assignments on time.
Yes.
But there's lots of levels of professionalism, and right, we've told to be on time, to follow up, to be kind, to listen, all of those things. But intention essentially means like, I, as an entrepreneur, as a professor, as a creative, I'm coming to you and I know what I want to share. And I'm holding this space to say, I've prepared and I am seeing your time, I'm honoring your time, right? Isaiah, go for it.
I was just thinking about it. We see fronting as a bad thing, but could fronting also be intentional if you're trying to brand yourself in a certain way? Artists have alter egos, I guess.
This is a really complex reaction to in wonderful. And that's actually kind of what I was thinking about. Sometimes when we think about performing, we think about that front, right? We think about, okay, and now I am this thing. And now I am this thing, right? And I feel like in conjunction with our integrating mindset and in conjunction with our listening mindset, it's more about saying, I am who I am. I've thought about the information I want to share with you. I've thought about who I'm talking to. So I am kind of shaping what I'm sharing based on the needs of the people listening. And so it's not so much a front or a brand. It's more about saying, I have thought about this moment and I've prepared for it. And that is what I think kind of comes into this mindset from a positive angle, as opposed to like this, like I have to be somebody else, right? So performing isn't being somebody else. It's not saying I'm imitating Taylor Swift. It's saying I'm being who I am with my thoughts, and I'm trying to connect them with you. Does that make sense?
Really case by case thing.
It is. I mean, I have like pitched or shared the same idea to many different users, right? We talked in prototyping. We talked about prototyping to different users. And so I might have the same idea, but I'll shape it a little different based on who I'm talking to. Because it's that intentionality and that respect of where that person is coming from. Does that make sense? Yeah. So 2 sets a space for a shared experience. Performance, believe it or not, is not one way. Right? And I think, okay, we've been talking a lot about these like large scale shows. And again, that person in the nosebleeds feels connected because that artist and that team of designers for that show have set a space in which everyone feels involved, right? You know, you have professors that ask a lot of questions. That's a shared experience. That means your voice is as important as the person with the microphone. Yeah? Uses emotion to connect. Have you been to a presentation or a performance that has felt emotional? Yeah. How did that performer access that? What do you think? Or how did they show that, I should say? How did they show that?
Face.
Their face? Yeah. I love that. Body language, 100%. Storytelling, right? It's this idea that, you know, if I talked like this the whole time and I just was really monotone and the same rhythm, the same dynamic, the same pace, everything, whew, how many brains are already turned off? Yeah, mine is too. That was actually really boring for me too. But emotion can look like dynamicism. It can look like tempo. It can look like pacing. It can look like all of these things, right? And woohoo, as Berklee College of Music students, you know about all those things. Yay. And 4 activates multiple senses, right? So while I'm presenting in a classroom, I don't get to like totally adjust the lighting and the warmth and all those things. If you have control, it can be very effective. How are people coming into the room, right? If you're giving a pitch to an investor, are they fed? How far away from you are they, right? How comfortable is the atmosphere? Do they have to get into a seat like these in the classrooms with the desks and everything, right? So you actually get to kind of set that space and use your understanding of like we feel, we smell, right? We see, we hear. You have to think about all of those things. And if you're giving a show like Tala was talking about at the start, like how does that audience feel? Like what are they seeing, hearing, understanding as they walk into the room? Have you designed shows like that before where you're like, here's where they'll stand or here's where they'll sit. Here's what the light's like. Here's when the light turns on, right? All of that stuff is accessing performing mindset. When you're doing it already, I want you to use it beyond that time you're on the stage. I think I already asked you to talk about your favorite performances, but I love this quote by Martha Graham. Martha Graham's a very famous choreographer, kind of the person who brought contemporary American dance into mainstream. But the great dancers are not great because of their technique. They're great because of their passion. I know this is like the simplest quote I could have told, but I love it because are you the best drummer in the world?
I wish.
No, you shouldn't.
No, I actually don't
Because
wish.
what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And like this kind of golden ticket to say, I am the best, I have the best technique, the fastest hands, I can play every genre. Like you don't need that. I am not the best percussionist. I'm not the best composer. There are people that I love and I get inspired by. But the passion, the dedication, the idea that we can access this performing mindset in all areas of our life, that is what is going to like elevate your career, right? Who has heard of Amanda Palmer? Amanda Palmer. Yeah?
Did
You.
you watch this video earlier in the semester?
You might have in another class.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a really, really popular TED Talk called The Art of Asking. Who's seen it before? A couple people. I mean, yeah, they have, of course. You've seen it?
I think I've seen it in the business class.
Okay, I'm glad you're going to see it again because I've seen it probably like 40 times by now. But it's a super powerful presentation. So here's a couple of things about Amanda Palmer. Punk artist, lives in Cambridge, what she talks about at the beginning of this TED Talk is in Harvard Square. So you should feel that's just across the river, right? And this TED Talk was filmed in 2013. So it's about 10 years ago when Twitter was kind of one of the biggest social media platforms. So translate that in your head to digital platforms and how they continue to shift. But she is incredible in the way she articulates the invitation. And this gesture is going to make a lot of sense in about 3 minutes. But I want you to think about throughout this TED Talk is how do you invite community, support, and help into your lives as performers, as entrepreneurs, and as creatives, okay? All right, so you're going to generate the conversation after the video, yes? The art of asking. What is your biggest takeaway? Yeah, Isaiah.
It was more of a thought than a takeaway, but it's just like the relevance of this is crazy because last night I was with one of my bands and they were talking about doing like a GoFundMe for a music video.
Yeah.
And the people filming, it's a long story, but the people filming the video wanted us to make a GoFundMe and film a video talking about the GoFundMe. And I was like, I don't really want to do that because it feels weird asking for stuff when there's people dying on the streets right now.
Oh, okay.
So it's just...
This is a big one, Isaiah.
Same like kind of thoughts.
Yeah.
And stuff.
That was heavy.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
It didn't really give me any clarity, but like, it made me think a lot.
The disconnect, right, between asking for help to do what you do versus when you feel, rightly so, that there's a lot of things happening around the world, right? I'm going to kick it to a classmate before I talk. Okay, go ahead.
I have a really hard time asking for help. Like, just even like emotionally.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Mental health wise.
I hear you.
Horrible time asking
Yeah.
for help. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't need you, but
Yeah.
then that's consuming. No, I struggle with a lot of anxiety, so that's always been really hard for me because I deal with it myself. So when I have people that want to help me,
Yes.
because of that, I also feel like I have trouble asking for help in
Many
music.
ways. Yes.
And
Yes.
like, I can't figure out a lyric.
Yes.
I'm like, who do I ask? Should I ask?
Yes.
Does that make me feel
Yes.
inferior? Can I can't figure out that lyric? Or...
Yes. Who can relate to Tala? I think every hand should go up. Tala, you're talking about the anxiety of asking for help from the spectrum of like personally to musically to professionally and everywhere in between. Whether that's like asking for help on a lyric, on a technique, asking for help getting directions to the train station. Like it is this vulnerability of admitting that you don't know something. And that is so, so hard. Or the asking for help for a project in which you are comparing to other situations, right? These are absolutely legitimate and do feed into that fear of asking and letting people in. Let's keep going with Jack. Go ahead.
So I feel like the main idea of this TED Talk, sort of like the redefining what an exchange is, has sort of yet to be widely implemented, but there are sort of cracks in the armor in that stigmatism that have sort of happened since this TED Talk was made. Like, I feel like it sort of demonstrates how even, like, in the last, 10 years since this TED Talk was made, there's been, like, a lot of progress in sort of getting rid of that, like, get a job mentality.
Yeah, totally. I think we are, because this TED Talk is, like, 11 years old now, and we have transitioned heavily into a kind of gig landscape, a freelance landscape, and a respect of someone having a hustle and creating a career out of it. So I think you're right on, Jack, there, where it's like there has been this transition of acceptance. However, has it made asking for help any easier? I don't know. Personally, I have my own struggles, and I think you'll grow with this throughout your life, but I think there is a little bit more respect for the creative industries and for kind of people building their own business. It is extremely challenging to make our soft skills stronger. What is a hard skill? Like, what is a technical skill? It's like my fingers move faster on playing guitar, right? My single stroke roll is faster. And like, it's saying that I can do bicep curls and then my muscles get bigger. Those are things that we see physically, or we have tangible results in how we are progressing in those skills. Soft skills, right? That's like your leadership style, your performing mindset, your integrating mindset, your listening mindset, how well you listen, how deep you listen, how easily you can ask for help. seeing that progress, that is challenging, right? Because it's invisible. So what Jessica is bringing up in reaction to the TED Talk is that the way Amanda helped herself get over the shame of asking is by forcing herself to ask non-stop. And for her, that meant as a performing artist on a street, on a crate in the middle of Harvard Square, giving out flowers in return for $1. Right? You do that over and over again, you're like, yes, I can look a stranger in the eye, right? Tala's talking about her performance, you do that over and over and over again, right? You do get that moment, that pre-stage anxiety might not go away, but you can handle it better, right? So we understand that repetition and doing and exposure does help us grow, even if we can't physically see the muscle grow or physically see our fingers or hands move faster, right? I saw a hand. Oh, Sydney, and then I saw a hand back there. Yeah.
Yeah, just like adding on to what Jessica was saying. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's also like interesting. It was interesting to think about like the art of asking, especially in this day and age.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's definitely a shift
Yeah.
in between like how people would like be more accepting to like give people help or like help people versus now. Because I feel like you kind of see that everywhere. Like.
Yeah.
On social media, people like a lot of musicians who like are independent. They're constantly like asking for help to like listen to music. So it's kind of like interesting to think about how to navigate in this day and age when everyone seems so much more comfortable with asking.
Yeah.
And how to navigate through that newfound fear.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing this up. This is strong. I'm going to react to that. I'm going to let you react. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is that okay? And Sebastian too.
That wasn't towards that.
Okay.
Kind of.
Well, I'm going to take it and then we'll swing it back. So Sydney's talking about we actually feel overwhelmed with people asking nonstop because you're scrolling. You're on these social media platforms and you see another face pop up like every 5 seconds. And a lot of times because you are in the creative industries, you're like, it's a musician friend that like has a Kickstarter, like you feel overwhelmed by people being so comfortable asking. However, you are in a physical room with 30 colleagues. 95% of the people raised your hand and said you have a fear of asking for help, right? So just remember that what is on that phone is just this micro, tiny compartment of the amount of people that are in the industry, that are creating, that are out there to support you. You know what I mean? Because I get it too, because you're like, wow, well, everyone's done everything. Where am I going to go? But remember that is so tiny and so curated. And when you're actually in the physical space, again, with 30 people in this room, the lived experience is way different than that. And as Amanda points out, it's just a tool. It's just a tool. Like Twitter asking for help, asking for the, neti pot, asking for a place to crash. Those, she's using them as tools, but not as the actual, like, space of community connection. She's holding that to be real life shows. It's just so important. I'm so glad you brought that up because I feel like that has brought on the anxiety, as you were talking about before, is like we do struggle with the mental health and the like, I'm so anxious to ask. And it's because you feel like everybody's already asking. And I'm here to tell you that's not true, right? And we're all kind of collectively trying to figure that out. There was a couple more hands. Are they still? Yep.
It is like our job to make sure the next person feels comfortable asking as well.
Totally.
Like, it is my job to make sure Maya feels comfortable asking.
Yeah.
What is that homework assignment? What does that mean?
Awesome.
Because at the same time, like you can ask and ask and ask to become more comfortable asking.
Yeah.
But if you're asking, and then constantly being shut down, you're becoming more uncomfortable asking.
Tala, this is awesome.
So like,
Yeah.
I think it comes from somewhere. For me, it
Yeah.
comes from somewhere. Like,
Yeah.
I don't ask as much anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been shut down before.
Yeah.
That's where the fear comes from.
Ugh.
So.
Like claps and snaps for Tala. This is like such a good point. But we actually have to practice the other side of giving.
It's just our job as people, I think.
I love that. I haven't really brought that into this conversation before, ever. I mean, I feel like we talk about in the listening space, but that kind of ends at the action, right? In the listening mindset. And what you're talking about is like the giving, right? How do you sit in a room? In 2 weeks, you'll be listening to your peers, right? How do you make sure that they feel comfortable asking? So strong. Thank you for bringing that up. Isaiah.
Just to jump off of that, I feel like the more I provide for other people, the more it almost trains me to be comfortable asking as well. Kind of works in reverse, just because like you feel that community within yourself.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit more.
Yeah,
when
I love it.
Making yourself a part of it.
Keep thinking about that as you make your decisions for your fundraising campaign, okay? Because remember that we all, like, it's also we're all in this together. I'm reminded of the America Ferrera talk, the podcast we listened to, remember? And it was like she was having the complexities of, I'm doing acting in theater and movies, and I want to be this like international lawyer because I feel like then I can make change. But you can make change in your space. And we can, as artists, as creatives, as entrepreneurs, right? It doesn't have to be at the scale that we can kind of see globally, but you can make, incremental change. All right? Cool. And now let's talk about brass tacks, all right? When we're in the entrepreneurial landscape, we're talking about the pitch. If I said you had to pitch something right now, what would you feel? Shout at me. Ah! Scared. Ah! Laughter. Anxiety, right? Whew, the word is kind of weighty. The word is kind of like, also it's a sharp word. You have to pitch this. Go pitch yourself. And you're like, ugh, that feels like that's just not a kind English word. But hopefully through the next couple weeks, you'll start to sit with what does it mean to pitch. And what I want to give you is just a couple of like super like brass tacks. Here's form. Here's what to bring to it. Fundamentally, your pitch should feel like that 2.5-minute dance. It should feel dynamic. It should feel intentional. It should feel intriguing, right? All these words that you're bringing to the table. Maybe we'll even go back to Riley's, like, it's going to transcend. That might be a little too lofty for some of us, but using the performing mindset, storytelling, and connection to articulate your value. So whether you're pitching yourself in an interview, whether you're pitching an idea to a fundraiser, whether you're pitching in 2 weeks, your project idea to a fake pool of investors that are your classmates, right? It should use storytelling. It should kind of evoke the performing mindset and should clearly connect your value, articulate your value. Let the listener get to know you while sharing your idea. And I think this also kind of connects with what Tala was saying before about being a giver and a receiver, right? And it should just let them be like, I'm just me up here. I'm not trying to be anybody else. Right? I am authentically this person with this lived experience that is just talking to you who's had your lived experience, right? We don't have to act. We are just letting that person get to know you. Offer opportunities for connection, input, and listening. So here is a little rubric for how you can put together a compelling pitch. First, the what. All right. I know this sounds really simple, but start with what you want to share. Is it your idea? Are you saying, I would love this job? Are you saying, I would love for you to invest in this company? Share right away what you want and what the idea is. So share your idea, project, business in 1 to 2 sentences. MF Dynamics creates multidisciplinary and immersive performances and installations. That is my sentence, I know, and I can say it all the time for my business. Then I can develop it and I can reshape it for whoever the listeners are, but know what that 1 or 2 sentences. Like, what was our, I'm trying to think of one of your prototypes. We are redefining access to physical activities at Berklee College of Music and beyond. Our company does XYZ, right? Then the for whom. Who are you making for? For Berklee students. I create projects for concert venues and museums, etc. Then the why. Why is this a pain point or problem you are solving for? This is where you get kind of the storytelling aspect, right? Berklee students don't have access to physical recreation spaces, right? Credibility. Why are you the right team to solve this problem? You talk about how you have experience in this, and for your presentation in 2 weeks, you can make that up. You can say, as one of the top design firms in the United States, something like that. And then risk reversal. How are you taking on the risk? Okay. What this means for specifically an entrepreneurial pitch to an investor or a funding opportunity in the nonprofit space is saying, if you contribute to this project, I am taking on the risk of making this happen. All right? So I'm not going to be leaning on Jack to say, oh, well, you gave me these funds, right? And if I can't make a decision, it's actually up to you. I'm saying, I can do this, right? So you want to have that listener gain the confidence in you that you're ready to take on those risks. And remember, First day of class. What does an entrepreneur do?
Assume all risk.
Assume all risk in an endeavor. Thanks, Jack. Whew. That was a little stressful for me there. Okay, and the last is the call to action. Okay, what is a call to action? It's the marketing and business way to talk about what action do we take next? So that might mean like on a social media post, it's like click this to contribute. In an investment pitch, it would say, here's what we need from you, right? So it's actually it's letting that person know how to follow up. Does that make sense to everybody? So the what, for whom, why, your credibility, your risk reversal, and your call to action. If you enjoyed this discussion, I will have new ones coming out every week. So make sure you subscribe.